What is going on, guys? It is time for another edition of the weekly word for this week. It is Friday, January 11th of 2013. A lot of topics to discuss this week. A lot of things that I really want to share my take on with you guys. So let's just get right into it. As I mentioned, I previewed it on the news feed. A lot to get to. We're going to talk about the national championship game. We're going to talk about the ending of the NHL lockout, the debate over RG3, and previewing this weekend's divisional playoff games. But first, I have to talk about the national championship. And really, to me, it was really no big shocker that really that Alabama won this game. I was rooting for them because I'm a Purdue fan. So if you're a Purdue fan, you do not root, or not let your friends root for Notre Dame. Even though I know they're an Indiana school and all that, that's all well and good. But I could not do it. I couldn't. So I was rooting hard for Bama. I was live tweeting throughout the night, posting updates and my thoughts, and it was funny. I'm sorry, it was funny. I couldn't believe it. It was just Notre Dame had no answer for that Alabama offense, and they couldn't get anything going against that Alabama defensive front. There was just no way that the Irish were going to be able to crack this. When it was 28-0, I literally did this. I hugged my television. I hugged my television because it was just so awesome to see this dominant performance by this Alabama team. Now, granted, obviously, a lot of credit has to go to Nick Saban. I mean, come on. The team now has won, I think, back-to-back now BCS titles. I think now 3 in the last 40 years. A.J. McCarron now is I read is the only starting quarterback to win 2 BCS titles. So this is obviously huge for Alabama. This just goes to show how tough of a school they are, how well Nick Saban recruits. And apparently, looking back on it, how it was the best decision he could possibly make to actually leave the Dolphins and go to Alabama. Um, so in the end, that's right. It's really strong. There we go. In the end, it was just really this is really no surprise for a number of reasons. And I tweeted this throughout the night. The numbers, I think, really tell the story on this. Notre Dame, it was 12-0. Now, granted, they were 12-0. That's why they were number 1. They were the only unbeaten team in the FBS. But they were 12-0 with a very soft schedule. Of the 12 teams that Notre Dame beat, only three had 7 wins or more. And of those 3 teams, only one of them, that being Stanford, would go on to win their bowl game. Michigan lost their bowl game. Granted, a close loss to South Carolina and a late touchdown loss, but still a loss. And I think the other one was Oklahoma, who obviously, as we all know, got destroyed by Johnny Football and Texas A&M. So you compare that to Alabama. Alabama played 5 teams beat 5 teams with 7 or more wins, and I think 3 of them won their bowl game. And as a whole, Alabama played 7 bowl-eligible teams. That was also more than Notre Dame, who I think only played 5. So just looking at the schedule alone, to me, this was no surprise that Alabama just destroyed Notre Dame because Notre Dame had not played anybody of Alabama's caliber. There's there's no comparison. I mean, there's absolutely no comparison. Michigan gave up 33 points to South Carolina. Oklahoma gave up 41 to Texas A&M. There was just no comparison to that defensive front of Alabama's. Notre Dame was not going to be able to find a way to just get past this defense. Alabama was making it look so easy, and Notre Dame was just running into a brick wall. It was just so, to me, this honestly was just the no surprise of the night. It was just completely and utterly no surprise. And so now, obviously, for next year, this Alabama team, I don't think loses a whole lot, so obviously they're still going to be the favorite going into next year. As for Notre Dame, you know, now the question becomes, is Brian Kelly going to even stay? There was a report yesterday that he interviewed for the Philadelphia Eagles head coaching position, which would be a nice fit, but, because Philadelphia needs a guy that has, a good system in place and, working with that talent around him. But, who's to say? So, a lot of questions right now, a lot, you know, still up in the air there. But for me, just watching this game, just seeing the schedules, just seeing the numbers there, it really did not surprise me at all that this game was a big blowout as it was. Now, the rating numbers also came in, and it still posted a pretty good rating, but for the most part, it had been lower than years past, obviously because by the second half, fans were going click on their TV and switching to other shows, other channels. Um, so yeah, obviously not the game that we were, and I think a lot of us were hoping for. Obviously, a lot of us were hoping for a very close game, competitive game, grinded out kind of game. But in the end, the writing to me was on the wall. There was just no way that Notre Dame was going to be able to compete. And then the debate began, and I read this on ESPN.com. Oh, should Oregon have been there instead? Should Kansas State have been there instead? You know what? You know who should have been there instead, actually? Texas A&M. It would have been a lot more entertaining and a lot more fun to me to see Alabama play Texas A&M. Now, granted, that's two SEC schools, so obviously, well, actually it could because Alabama and LSU played last year. So, but to me, that would have been a lot more entertaining. A.J. McCarron and that team going up against Johnny Football and crew, I mean, and the Heisman winner, come on. I mean, to me, that would have been a lot more entertaining than the game we got on Monday night. So, just a thought, but But yeah, to me, absolutely no surprise, no shocker. This was, to me, completely and utterly expected. Alabama was a 9.5-point favorite anyway. So really, if you were a bettor and you took Bama and the points, you won some pretty good money. So maybe not a whole lot of good money, depending on how much you bet. But not that I'm endorsing gambling, but just if you did. But to me, no shocker. I was definitely not shocked. Now, I feel like I have to address this just briefly because it got a lot of attention, but I was surprised by the fact that Brent Musburger and Kirk Herbstreit were all oodling over A.J. McCarron's girlfriend. I mean, come on. Yes, I understand it's a blowout, but do you have anything better to do during the course of that game than oodling over, yeah, she's Miss Alabama. So, whatever. Let A.J. McCarron keep her. Don't have people on Twitter go after her. And you know what actually she said, which I loved her response and her reaction to all this. She said, you know what? I think it's very flattering. I don't have a problem with it at all because she knows she's already got a great guy in McCarron. So, why should she be upset over that? So, but ESPN still felt like it needed to issue an apology for Musburger's comments. So I'm sure he's going to be a little more limited in the future. But to me, that was just funny. ESPN could find nothing better to talk about during a blowout national championship game than a woman in the stands. Okay, I guess that just shows sometimes how desperate ESPN really gets. Ugh. Sorry, I'm recording this early in the morning. I gotta wake up. So, anyway, moving on from that, let's talk about a story that really, really, really got me excited when it was announced last Sunday, and that was it's over, finally. The NHL lockout finally came to an end. The NHL and the Players Association came to the framework of a new CBA. The NHL Governors Board ratified it yesterday, so now they're going to have the players electronically vote on it from now up, or actually from yesterday up until hopefully by Friday or Saturday. Then training camps are expected to begin on Sunday, and then the schedule, they're expecting to have a 48-game schedule this year released on January 19th. They're hoping to release the schedule very soon, so I'm looking forward to that. I've been a hockey fan now probably for, I would say about since '02. I grew up watching a lot of minor league games, and I still do. I still follow the minor leagues a lot, like the Fort Wayne Comets, the Indiana Ice, the Green Bay Gamblers, a lot of fairly local teams that I follow, um, and some that are not so local that I like to follow as well. But so I grew up. Went to about a lot of the ice games at the Pepsi Coliseum in Indianapolis, and I've been to one Comet game, and let me tell you, the atmosphere. Just yeah, you can watch the games on TV, and that's pretty cool, and you can see what it's like. But unless you're actually there, seeing the fast-paced action, seeing how raucous the crowds get, it's pretty cool. And I have to share this story, and I know that if my best friend sees this, he's gonna hate me. But I have to share this. Last year, I took my best friend, to a Indiana Ice game down at the Pepsi Coliseum, and they were playing the Cedar Rapids Rough Riders, and which is one of their more hated division rivals. And it was an awesome game. The Ice completely dominated. It was just like a dominant, like it was like 6-1 or 7-1 or something like that, or 7-2. Just completely dominant performance by the Ice. We were actually where we were sitting, and probably the closest seats I've ever had. We were sitting like 3 seats over from the home team penalty box. We were like 2 or 3 rows behind the glass, so we could see everything up close. It was awesome. It was just a great view, and at one point, my friend has never been to a hockey game before, so this was new for him. But he was getting excited. I was getting excited. We were all jacked about the game. And next thing we know, there's play going down in the corner, and the puck just takes a weird angle. It flies up over the glass from the other side of where we were sitting, and it's rocketing, and it just comes. My best friend hears a thud. It lands in like 2 rows behind him, down on the floor, and he's like ducking. He's like, "What was that?" And I'm like, dude, I think the puck went over the glass. I think it hit behind our row. And he's like, that could have hit my head. And I'm like, yeah, it very well could have. That's kind of the risk we take sitting here. But yes, it could have. And so after the game was over and we're walking back to the car, my best friend takes one look at me and says, dude, if we ever go to a hockey game again, I'm wearing my softball helmet. I don't care. So that was kind of a cool story, bro, kind of thing, where it was his first experience, and he had fun, he had a blast, but it just had a kind of a interesting moment there. But anyway, I'm excited for the season to be back. I'm really looking forward to it. I can't wait. Yeah, I've been the minor leagues have tided me over in the meantime, and that's kind of been a nice thing. But to me, it just doesn't compare with just the competitiveness, the awesomeness, the action of the NHL. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what this season brings. Obviously, last year, the big story was the LA Kings coming out of nowhere, the number 8 seed in the West, going all the way, beating Vancouver, sweeping St. Louis, beating Phoenix, and then beating who did they beat in the final? Who did they beat in the final? See, now I can't remember who they beat in the final. It's been so long. New Jersey, that's right. New Jersey made that deep run as well. They were a surprise as well. They were like the 6th seed out in the East or something like that to win the Stanley Cup, their first in franchise history. So that was really cool for the Kings and their organization. And now they get to finally defend it. So it'll be interesting to see. Now, the big debate that's out there right now is obviously it's a shorter season, so it's only 48 games. So a fast start is going to be key for this season. And there could definitely be some under-the-radar teams. And a lot of moves were made in the offseason. Obviously, the huge one was in Minnesota, getting Ryan Suter, Zach Parise, getting those guys in the offseason to really boost up that team. The young guys in Edmonton, are they finally going to make an impact? There's a lot really to dissect as the season goes in. Sidney Crosby in Pittsburgh, he's finally back healthy and looking forward to play this season. Just a lot of things to go through when it comes to the NHL, but I am just glad that it's back. Now, obviously the big thing is the NHL is going to have to make a very valiant effort to win back a lot of its fans. I have always felt that, yeah, do the lockouts suck? Yeah, absolutely. It's frustrating. It's sometimes we be angry. Yeah, it's hurtful. But you know what? Every time they finally figure something out, I always am glad to welcome the game back with open arms. I know a lot of fans aren't like that because this is the third work stoppage, I think, under Gary Bettman's commissionership. But, the NHL said, we're going to try to make an effort. We're going to have different things to really try hard to win the fans back. We know we have to regain their trust. We know we screwed up. So we know what we've got to do. We've got a lot of work to do. We're going to work on doing it. So I appreciate that from the NHL. I really hope that a lot of fans do come back, but I will understand those that don't if they are truly, if this is the final straw for them. Hey, I get that. I understand where they're coming from, and so we'll wait. We'll just wait and see what happens from there. But really excited that it's back. Just really, really looking forward to who's going to be the big players this year. Um, so yeah, so if you kind of look at each division, who's going to make kind of a big impact? Obviously, with the East, you got to think the Rangers also were a big player in the offseason, making that move to get Rick Nash. So that was huge for them. I think they're going to be a player this year. Obviously, the Penguins, with Crosby back healthy. Um, the Southeast division I think is really up for grabs because Florida was kind of a surprise winner last year with the Panthers, but obviously I think the Capitals are going to be back up in the running again. Um, and then in the other division in the East, and that would be the oh, I'm sorry, wrong division. Whoops, I thought the Caps were in the Southeast division. They're in the Northwest, so the Caps are probably going to win that division. Southeast, that's Florida, Ottawa, Tampa Bay, Winnipeg, Carolina. Again, really up for grabs. Ottawa made some moves in the offseason, I think. So who knows with that one? That one I think could really be up in the air. Washington's definitely going to contend for their division again. Of course, you can never count out Boston. They're going to be up there again, although Tim Thomas is gone now, not playing this year. So a lot going on there. Western Conference. Central Division. Nashville's going to be a contender, as always. It'll be tough for Detroit. No, I think their captain retired. So now they got to find a guy to fill in for him. St. Louis is probably going to be a competitor again. They won the division last year. Northwest. Minnesota, I said, is going to rise up. Maybe Edmonton will. Vancouver, a lot of questions there surrounding where Roberto Luongo is going to end up. He says if the right deal comes, he might waive that no-trade clause. So be interesting to see where he ends up, or if he just decides to stay in Vancouver and continue to compete with Corey Schneider for the starting position. That'll be a story to follow as well. And then in the Pacific, obviously you got to look at the Kings as favorites because they're coming off winning the Cup, but you also got to think that San Jose is going to be in that mix again. Maybe Phoenix. Dallas made some moves in the offseason. So a lot to dissect, a lot to look at. Just excited, though, they're actually going to have a season in the NHL at all. All right, third story. And this one is a really big one because there were a lot of things flying around this one after it happened. But I mentioned on here in my wild card picks last week about this, and by the way, I went 3-1 on my wild card picks last week, so I only lost the Colts Ravens game. I guess I should have maybe looked at the fact that Lewis was kind of the more emotional end of things in Baltimore being the last home game and just overwhelming Andrew Luck. So yeah, the Ravens won. So yeah, but was I not right? And I believe it was one of my followers who said, or my subscribers who said to me, I disagree with you on that whole RG3 thing. I don't think he's going to be really immobile. Oh, really? Well, look what happened in Washington. He completely was just a wreck waiting to happen, unfortunately. Yeah, Washington got off to that nice start and led 14-0, but see, it just once again goes to show that Russell Wilson is the real deal, and B, it just shows how resilient that Seattle offense is. But the RG3 debate, to play him or not to play him, obviously as when he took that first awkward shot in the first quarter, he started limping around. And then as it further went along into the third and the fourth quarters, he took the sack from Bruce Irvin. That's the play that the Redskins said is where he actually tore or partially tore the ACL and the LCL in that knee. Not the play beforehand on the bad snap where the leg just finally just gave out like a wet noodle and just collapsed on him. Um, you know, I didn't understand why they did not why Mike Shanahan did not turn to Kirk Cousins at the first sign of any weakness from RG3, why they did not pull him out. And I guess I can understand sort of where they're coming from. Oh, it's the playoffs, you want to go all out, you want to win the game. But you traded for 3 draft picks to draft this guy number 2. St. Louis did not need a quarterback. They did not need the number 2 pick that year. So you traded up to get RG3 to be your franchise quarterback, and you're putting him through this? I mean, it made absolutely no sense to me. Kirk Cousins, the backup, had shown in the past that he was reliable, that he could win football games. So I could not understand for the life of me why the Redskins were still keeping RG3 in the game on one leg pretty much. That leg was all but gone. So, and again, it's the playoffs. I understand. You want to win. But if this is your franchise quarterback, this is the guy that you drafted to be the guy for how many years going forward, you've got to consider his health. You just have to. Um, you cannot risk it. But they did, and look what happened. And so obviously then a lot of finger pointing was placed after the game. Is it RG3's fault? Is it Mike Shanahan's fault? And yes, even ESPN asked this question, is it Jay Cutler's fault? Because if you'll recall, a couple years ago in the NFC Championship game, Cutler also had a knee injury. I believe it also was an LCL injury, but he sat out and he was criticized for it. So now it's like, oh, now they play him and now we get criticized for it again. You can't have it both ways, ESPN. You've got to pick a side. So, in the end, I honestly, personally thought that if he was not 100%, RG3 should not have played. But he made the comment to Shanahan when Shanahan thought about pulling him out the first time. He said, "Well, Coach, I want to play because I'm hurt. I am not injured. There's a difference between being hurt and being injured." Well, apparently, there's not much of a difference because your knee said, "No, RG3, you're not playing no more." So to me, it was just way too much of a risk. I knew that's the reason why I picked Seattle, because I knew that if they were going to play RG3 with that knee issue, he was not going to be 100%. He was not going to have that running ability, and eventually, and I didn't hope and expect for that to happen, where his knee would just give out on the guy, but it was a risk, and obviously some of the blame has to be put on Shanahan because he decided to keep him going when he knew that his quarterback was weak. So there's a little bit of that there, but I can understand the bravado of RG3, I guess, because he wants to win for this team. He wants to be the face of this team. He wants to, put this team in the winning position. So I can understand that, but you also have to look out for yourself. You do, and because you are expected to be the guy. So anyway, yeah, that's just my take on that whole thing. I really just felt like Washington really put themselves in a really difficult position with RG3. And even James Andrews said, in the game where he first injured the knee, that he did not give him clearance to go back in that game and play because he didn't get a chance to look at it. So this whole thing has just completely blown up like a knee, and it's just been completely just a mess, just a complete and utter mess, and so the best you can do right now is really hope that, according to reports, the surgery went well yesterday for RG3, so both ligaments are repaired, but now comes the rehab process. Usually it's a 6 to 8 month process. Um, RG3 expects to be ready by the season opener, but I don't know who the player was, but a player said, "Oh, it would be a downright miracle if Griffin was ready for the season opener." But we saw with Adrian Peterson this year how well he can come back from when he completely just destroyed his ACL and MCL. So who knows? I hope that Griffin gets to that level next year and becomes a player that maybe can have a breakout season like that, but it will all depend on how well that rehab goes. Because remember, he tore the same ACL in 2009 at Baylor, and on this, he basically partially tore that patella graft that repaired that ACL. So it just depends on the rehab process and how that goes. So stay tuned on that. But RG3, man, I'm really hoping for the best for you. Yeah, I can understand you going out there gung-ho trying to win for your team. But now, right now, it's got to be focused on you and rehab and getting through it and hopefully being a much better player next year as well. So Godspeed to you, RG3, and for a full recovery. All right, guys, finally, we're going to talk NFL Divisional Playoffs this week. We're going to preview the games for you and give you my picks for the week. So let's just go right in. First off, on the AFC side, the Texans coming off that win over the Bengals last week. Granted, not a pretty win. Only 19-13. 4 Shane Graham field goals and an Arian Foster touchdown last week were the big thing for Houston. They definitely took advantage of Andy Dalton's turnovers, as I mentioned on here. Had the interception. I think he might have thrown 2 interceptions in that game. But now they got to go to New England and face Tom Brady and company. That is never an easy task in the playoffs. New England very good at home, period, just whether it be regular season or playoffs. And if you'll recall, just a couple weeks prior, New England pretty much embarrassed Houston on national television, 42-14, just completely and utterly destroyed them. But here's the thing, and you know, if Houston, to me, what I've been worried lately with the Texans is their ability to score points. If they can only put up 19 on Cincinnati, a team that is definitely lower than in talent and quality than New England, I'm really worried that they're not able to keep up with this high-octane Patriots offense. So I feel like I have to go with New England at home. I just don't see the Texans, unless they get that defense with J.J. Watt and company, can find a way to shut down that New England offense. I just don't see it happening. New England just has way too many weapons with Ridley and Woodhead and Welker and Gronk and Hernandez. I just don't see the Texans being able to keep up with New England in Tom Brady's backyard. So I really got to go with the Patriots on this one, as tough as that is, because I'm not really fond of the Patriots. I got to go with New England in this one just because of the fact that A, they've beaten the Texans before, and B, it's in their backyard. So got to go with New England in that game. So that brings us to the second game in the AFC, that being Baltimore at Denver. This has had a lot of storylines as well since this game was set in stone. Obviously, with Baltimore, prolonging the career of Ray Lewis for one more game. And if you watched it, I don't know if you guys watched it, but if you watched NFL Turning Point on NFL Network, which is a great show, by the way, they kind of recap and mic up, they kind of give the sound bites of all the players that were there. I mean, I know I'm a Colts fan, and I was rooting for the Colts to win, but watching that Turning Point and watching Ray Lewis, just the way that those teammates and the fans cheered him, that was an awesome feeling. So definitely a very cool moment for Ray's last game in Baltimore. But now they're on the road the rest of the way. They got to go to Denver, which is again another tough place to play because obviously the Mile High effect, the thin air in Denver, and of course, by the way, on the roster is one Peyton Manning, who in the past has tended to have Baltimore's number. If you'll recall, he has beaten the Ravens both times that was with the Colts in the playoffs. So the big story really has been going along all week is that Peyton Manning is going to wear a glove in Denver because the weather's going to be kind of cold there. So it's going to be a different, very colder environment. Peyton Manning usually has tended not to do very well in the colder weather. So that's a big topic of debate. But Obviously Baltimore's mission and goal is going to be, again, that defense. Now that it's at full strength, they are definitely going to try to get pressure on Peyton and crew. But I think, again, the fact that Denver has just been so good this season overall at home, um, in that environment, and that Peyton has been on point with his receivers, getting guys like Demaryius Thomas involved, Eric Decker, Brandon Stokely, and that running game with no Sean Moreno, even Ronnie Hillman getting involved. Again, I just think that's too many weapons for Baltimore to contend with. Obviously, for Baltimore, it's all about Ray Rice, Ray Rice, Ray Rice, and Flacco. Had a decent game last week, but again, he doesn't really have that elite receiving weapon. He's got a bunch of other guys, and that occasionally make catches. Torrey Smith, Anquan Bolden, maybe getting the tight ends, starting to get the tight ends involved like Dennis Pitta and Ed Dixon, but for the most part, there's not a real standout guy. Payton can find a way to completely get into weapons. Plus, you can't forget about Champ Bailey in the secondary in Denver. He's probably going to be zeroed in on one of those receivers and completely shutting him down. So Flacco's going to have to find other options. In the end, I would love to see a Manning Brady rematch in the AFC Championship game. I just think it's fitting that these two are the best teams in the AFC. So I would love to see that. So I have to take. I know, again, I'm picking against the Ravens and that great story with Lewis, but it's probably going to be a close game. I think this is going to be a blowout. I think this is going to be a very close, competitive game. But in the end, because Manning's had their number in the past, and because he's at home where he's comfortable, and because he has all these weapons, I got to go with Denver. Slight edge to Denver in this game. I'd love to see Manning face Tom Brady for the AFC Championship. On the NFC side, again, another game that I'd love to see. So I have to pick these two teams this week. The first game on Saturday, that's Green Bay going to San Francisco. Green Bay did not look flashy against Minnesota last week, but then again, they really didn't have to because of the fact that Minnesota was playing a backup quarterback in Joe Webb, who hadn't even thrown a pass all season long. With Christian Ponder out with the elbow injury, that really hindered him, and it really led to Minnesota trying to focus on Adrian Peterson more. And in the end, Green Bay, as I said, had to happen in order for Green Bay to win. They mostly shut AP down. In fact, AP didn't even get to 100 yards on the day. So that was huge for Green Bay. They won 24-10. How about John Kuhn breaking out of nowhere? Big part of the offense. 2 touchdowns on the day. So huge for him. Excuse me. But this week, going up against, granted, technically, another backup quarterback, but he's been the starter because he's looked so good, and that's Colin Kaepernick. One of those dual threat quarterbacks who can run, but unlike Joe Webb, who is also good at throwing the pass. So that's going to be huge. But again, this is as much as I loved picking the home teams in the AFC. I'm going to mostly pick the road teams here in the NFC for a couple reasons, because I just think that Green Bay is poised to make a real legitimate run this season at the title. I think that, Aaron Rodgers, again, looks as strong as ever. His receiving weapons now are back at full strength with Jennings and James Jones and Randall Cobb and Jordy Nelson. All these guys getting involved in the game, and the running game, kind of now a 3-headed, maybe even 4-headed attack, if you will, with DeJuan Harris, with Kuhn, with Alex Green kind of getting in there, Ryan Grant even getting involved. So there's just so many weapons in this Green Bay offense. Granted, San Francisco doesn't have weapons, but I just think that Green Bay is so well-rounded, and they play well at both on the road and at home, that I just think they're very poised to make a run. This is going to be another very close, tight game. Back in week 1, these two teams play. Now, granted, there's a different variable in that game because Alex Smith, not Colin Kaepernick, was the quarterback for San Francisco, and the 49ers won 30-22. It is hard to beat the same team twice in the same season, unless you're New England. But I think Green Bay is going to come out and really be on their game in this one. I like Green Bay in this one. I like a high-scoring game. I think the games this week, Wild Card Weekend last week was more kind of like Dud Card Weekend because the games were all pretty much low-scoring. Green Bay and Seattle and Baltimore all won their games with 24 points. I don't think that might happen this week. I think someone's going to have to score more than that to win this week. So I like Green Bay this week. Very high scoring, I think. Kind of close game. But I like the Pack to win that one this week. Oh, man. I don't know what is wrong, but I'm starting to really, I don't know. I swallow a lot. Finally, so real quick, Atlanta, Seattle. Yeah, I know Atlanta's at home and they've been great all season. But again, I love Russell Wilson. I love what he's doing in Seattle. I love Pete Carroll as a coach. He's got a great amount on his shoulders. Seattle now is starting to win games on the road. Looked very strong last week. Atlanta has not had playoff success. They are 0-3 under Matt Ryan. Has never won a playoff game in Atlanta. So because of that, and because I would love, 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 love to see a Hail Mary Immaculate Deception rematch between Green Bay and Seattle, I got to go with Seattle in this game. As kind of the upset of the week, I want to see it. I want to see it with real refs. What would it have been like, the revenge game, the revenge factor for Green Bay. I want to see it. So I got to go with the Seahawks. So this week, Patriots, Broncos, Packers, Seahawks. Those are my 4 for the week. So if you want to share your picks, let me know your thoughts down below, share your thoughts on the show in general, on the topics this week, or any other topics you want to discuss. Please feel free. Thank you guys so much for your continued support of my channel and the show, and of course the FFSR all season long. And have a good weekend, and see you guys next week. Take care.